Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of sultry, sad episode of and Sorcery. I'm happy to be here. Not really. It's it's not a drag per se. But no, I am always happy to record an episode for you. Because I like to be able to talk to someone that for one isn't me. I'm the first person I care about. Honest take. But no, honestly, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching and for taking the time out of your busy day to look at me for a while. Yes, I am wearing something a bit different. Yesterday I actually attended a beautiful medieval fair located in Ashtabula County, I believe. It was a Great Lakes Medieval Fair. I had a wonderful time with the pictures taken, yes, with the song sung, yes, with the dancing, yes, with the food, yes, with the cute boys there. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to behave myself, otherwise I'd make more of myself. Oh no, I'm joking. No, but seriously, I had a wonderful time there. Is it an everyday thing I would like to partake in? Not every day, but perhaps maybe once a week, perhaps maybe once a month. To be honest, it's a lot of people, but I'm happy though because what I noticed that this year the fair was actually like a lot bigger, and it was a lot and it was actually cleaned up rather well. Like they erected more areas to sit in. They sort of organized it a bit more, cleaned up some areas. They sort of installed some things there. I feel like as though it's becoming more of a big thing in that area, which I think is awesome because as nice as the people are there performing and the costumes and everything else, there's an overwhelming spirit of celebration, of escapism that I think is important to sort of tap into. So what I noticed that, I went in there in a sort of, somewhat knightly garb. I didn't have anything like armor on. I was wearing things like leathers. Take note. And but I was there with sword in hand, and I'm not talking about my metal one. No, I did have a sword with me, but I was accompanied by my beautiful sister, and we were there, to sort of, just laugh, to have a good time, to take in the festivities, the people that were the mundanes there, yes, and were the practitioners there, yes, at some medieval fair. We actually have a designated spot. I say designated because it's the same spot I see sort of every year, where they actually have tarot readers. And they were sitting like this sort of nice tent, not too secluded from the rest of the public, but just there. But it feels private in itself. And even though it's open, there's like this air of like, respect around the sort of area. But there are people that sort of go into these tarot readers and they, essentially read them the tarot. And I think a reading is maybe around $30 or so, which I think is rather reasonable. These people have to make a living as well. And I think in another area which I did not see, and there were several installments that were placed this year that went there, I think in the years prior, there was actually, there were sort of metaphysical shops that were sort of opening up there. Now, we usually sort of always had this sort of thing at the fair, but it's mostly, things like apothecary light. You do have your herbs and things of that nature. Last year, when I went, there was a woman there. She had her own place. I forgot what the name was. It's very terrible. I think I do have a card, though. But she supplied a plethora of, like, herbs to use, of things like woods, even things like sages, because people still use them, and even things like oils or ointments and treatments. And she even would also know the difference between something that is, ethically sourced versus not, and what is legal to, source to use for production or to market versus things that are illegal to have. I believe I asked her whether she had a specific herb in her establishment, and she said, no, that is not legal for us to actually sell or put out there, and other things. So she was actually quite knowledgeable, which I did appreciate. But in another part of the park, of the area, there was essentially a few shops, a lot of shops this year, which I think was nice. It rather felt like a proper fair, which was nice. They had a few people who I'm assuming were other practitioners as well, and they had a special tent there. They had their own grimoires there. Some that were even bound, so you couldn't really see them. They were sort of wrapped up. But they had things that were at reasonable prices. And they had things like altars that you could purchase. They had things like cards you could purchase, things like runes or whatever to use. And I, did hear some talk on the other side that they were sort of practitioners to a certain degree, which I think is marvelous. It is important to have different types of people for this type of fair. And since, the type of things that we believe in tend to lean towards the more mystical, magical, even fantastical, which is a whole allure of the medieval fest. I think it's a prime market for, people of our community, I say respectively, to be a part of that community there. But everyone there, and I absolutely love the fair. And I think there's something important, and I think I should probably sort of make it into a subject. Um, but I believe, having something like a fair is sort of a magical place in of itself, because it is a medieval fair is a sort of it becomes a hub of certain types of sympathetic energies that are seeking something that doesn't presently exist. And it is sort of calling back to the days and the memories of the long distant past. And it is sort of bringing up stories and actions and fighting and all of these stages and shows and the aesthetics that sort of help take the mind to a different place. And so it is crafted to become the sort of thing that can sort of alter a person's mind and their spirit to a time that is either not of their own world or a time that was long past. And it is able to sort of transform the person's experience and at least give them a brief reprieve, because spirits need that. And I think at a certain point, I started sensing a few things. And I think I believe that there are certain times when you sort of have a huge conglomerate of people in an area that are dedicating their time and their focus into a certain event, into the theme of the event. It starts to take shape, it starts to take an energetic form. And this form tends to have an effect on the people there. And I started seeing this everywhere I went. There were people that, of course, showed up and they were in their, usual, like, everyday garb. Things like, you're wearing a polo, you're wearing jeans, very mundane. But a huge amount of people as well were dressed up in fantastical outfits. They had their tunics, they had their sandals, they had their swords, their staves, their wizard hats, everything that you can think of in fantasy was essentially present at that fair. And I thought it is a beautiful moment and a beautiful time, and I encourage everyone else to sort of partake in this type of an event, because not only does it give you this sense of escapism, but it can also give you this sort of sense, this sort of feeling of magic, of camaraderie, of spirit. And there was absolutely spirit there. I felt it. And, there were several events that I saw. I saw, for example, a performance, I think known as the Washing Wenches or whatever it was. It's a comical duo, two women, absolutely brilliant. They have this whole get up, they essentially look like wenches, with the dilapidated clothing. They have their own stage presence, but they are sort of in charge of washing and everything else. And they come up with games and their own thing and their own type of songs. And they would have, audience participation. I did not participate because I have to keep my identity anonymous as much as possible. But I was more so in, rather gear, and I didn't want to risk anything. So, but the people that were, volunteering were very in spirit. They were part of it. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was cheering. Everyone was clapping. Everyone was enjoying themselves, being a part of this thing. And guess what? It didn't matter what the person on stage looked like, what their beliefs or what they felt. What mattered was the moment and what they were dedicating themselves in that moment. The beautiful things about medieval fairs as well is because it is a time, sort of a pre-Halloween sort of festival or a celebration, where people can essentially be whatever they want to be. And there's no real judgment behind it. It's a medieval fair, which is a playground for nerds. I love them. And I'm sorry, I have to wipe my mouth sometimes. I drool when I think about it. But they have people that essentially want to go there to escape, and sort of dress up as something different. There are some people, however, that still sort of maintain that strange sort of, present toxicity when it comes to, like, the geopolitical climate and everything else like that, things like identity or whatever. But what was beautiful about, this year, or at least the people that were present this time, was that, no matter what personal beliefs they had, they maintained the character, they maintained the theme. And so there were people that were dressed up as is. There were people that didn't look like a traditional gender type. And there were people that were dressed up in furry costumes. And there were people that, just looked like animals, beasts, dragons, knights, maidens, princesses, mages. But it was all accepted. And they all worked together collectively as a unit, as a community. Because a lot of people were present at that festival, at that fair. And there were thousands probably there, But there was so many people, but they were there for the theme, for the enjoyment, for their time. And that is what was beautiful about it. But I think the magical thing about something like a fair is the fact that it has the innate ability to sort of transform the person that walks into the fair. People already know that this is a place where people dress up and they have fun. But the more you see something, the more you hear something, the more you feel something, the more you sort of mind transforms you from one state into a secondary state. And you're sort of going into this different world or whatever, and I thought that's beautiful. And I think one thing I want to sort of mention is because there was something that sort of left an impression on me quite deeply when I was there. And towards the end of the Medieval Fair, there was something, I think it's a group known as Celtic Mayhem, for example. If I can find the picture, I think I'll post it right here for everyone to see. And though, the Celtic thing, they go by themes during the week. So each week you have things like pirates, you have things like, your more Celtic origins or whatever. You have your things like your knights or whatever, but it's all medieval base. So it's based on medieval premises. I'm sorry, what's the proper word? The proper term of the usage for it. It's a medieval premise. It's the medieval theme. Everything's medieval. Medieval is accepted all throughout, but there's different time points within the medieval period, and there's also different cultures that sort of were around during that same time as well. That they have sort of different types of things. They had different types of outfits and everything else. And what I also noticed, a slight tangent from what I wanted to get to in regards to Celtic Mayhem, was, for example, that many of the performances that were present there were also, performing in different languages, for example. And there were people that were dressed up in, Spanish garb, either things like, historically Spain, things like musketeers, the Spanish colonials, even before that, a bit more. You can sort of see in the elaborate, and their very elaborate and very fashionable attire, their hats with the feathers and everything, that sort of comes with that sort of, community of people. But they were actually singing songs in Spanish. Like they were singing songs there, and the people that were just taking it in and enjoying it, and they were clapping and cheering. There was so much cheer and applause when I was at this festival. No matter where you were, there were screams, there was laughter, there was wails of triumph and victory. It was fantastic. It was a proper fair, proper festival. People went there because they wanted an escape from this fucking madness we have ourselves in, and they were able to achieve that result within that day, within a certain period of time. The event itself lasted from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is a huge stretch of time. But because of my work schedule, I was able to be there with my sister, as well as traveling for about an hour, for maybe about 3.5 hours, which honestly isn't bad. The park isn't dreadfully large. Everything is sort of contained, but there's a lot to see. And we were able to eat something. We were able to see a couple of shows. We were able to walk around. We were able to do a wee bit of shopping, and we had a good time there. Afterwards, we had some ice cream. It was fantastic. But yes, but there were people that were having different languages there. There were people that were dressed up in very traditional Romani attire as well when it came to the traditions. And it was lovely. It was a beautiful time. And so people here were sort of going for that. There were seldom any problems and discussions. You never really hear any arguments or whatever, because people know what they want and they go there for the theme, for the thing, for the event of it all. And they even have a special area, where you can duel someone. You can fight with swords or whatever they have at their disposal, using safe equipment as well. They do sell things like weapons, like swords or shields. Most of it's, decorative. It's not necessarily lethal. They're not battle-ready weapons. My weapon that I brought wasn't battle ready, but some could think it is. It is marvelous. I brought it in very shiny, but I didn't really show off the blade, and I think it's sort of a disservice to the blade itself. But I sort of wanted to just have that item to, further accessorize what I was wearing. But that was that tangent I was sort of talking about. There's different cultures there. Of course, you have your Celts, you have the Scots, you have things like Vikings. Everyone's there for it, and everything that you can think about medieval times or fantasy period, or the different cultures and the Celtic cultures, and maybe along the Mediterranean, Italian, things like that. These were things that were sort of melded together to form a brilliant and vibrant community. There was beautiful colors, there were wreaths with flowers on them. It was very nice, and I was so happy to see it. And it was beautiful. And I was happy I went this year. And the weather, phenomenal. It was around the 60s. It was brilliant. The sun was out. The skies were blue. The clouds were in the sky, just, smiling. And the weather, it was a little breeze. It wasn't even that windy. It was a perfect amount of breeze. It was a perfect day for a fair. Thank the spirits. Oh my God! Unlike what happened Tuesday, a titan walked through our city. We in fact did have an EF1 tornado that actually hit the city Tuesday of this week, of this past week. Um, I forget. It was the first. Today is, I believe, the 11th when I'm recording this video, so it was a Tuesday of this week. It was very windy. I just come out of work. I got home. I got a notice on my phone saying, there's a tornado warning for certain areas and move to our area. So go to your basement. And even though we are within that halo when it comes to things like tornadoes or twisters or, rather strong phenomenon, our city rarely sees such things happen. And so the Titan came through the city and essentially, blew a bunch of trees over, knocked out a bunch of power lines and cables. So large amounts of the city were essentially blackened out. There were people that just today got their power, and it happened Tuesday. So almost a week, and some people still probably won't get theirs till perhaps a few days later. But the electric crew and everything else, they were doing a marvelous job, and I applaud them because it's not an easy job to do, and there's a lot of people that depend on them for the work that they are doing. So support them when you see them, And some people absolutely did, and I was happy about that. Because yes, we understand that people have this, we're so used to having power of electricity, but when that sort of thing is taken away, when a lot of society depends on it, it can essentially put people in a bit of chaos. They sort of start to panic because people are so sort of separated from how we used to do things back then when we didn't have power, but people still thrived because they knew how to. But we sort of lost that over time. But because I am a freak when it comes to things like lanterns and reminiscing about the past, as far as lighting goes, we were fine. We had lanterns, we had candles, we had a gas stove, thankfully, so we were able to prepare food or heat anything up if we needed to, you know. And some parts of the city didn't have power still, but many parts didn't. Smaller businesses definitely suffered. Even franchises suffered as well. These are people that employ people that need jobs, let's be honest. So you couldn't really go out to eat anywhere. The intersections where cars have to travel in through had no power, so people were essentially left to their own devices and own better judgment, was sometimes not the best idea at certain issues. I was debating why we didn't have crossing guards at least each major intersection, but it didn't happen. But there's many reasons for that, Even at the place where I worked at the portals, or the airport, technically, the huge surrounding area around it was also blacked out. The employee parking lot, the parking lot period for most parts of the airport that weren't directly connected to it were negatively affected by the loss of power. So it was a blackout everywhere. The entire ride towards that job, which is a 15-minute drive, it is pitch black the entire way along the highway. The lampposts were working, nothing was. And this was obviously a signal, hopefully, to our, officials that, our city, though we are not in the direct line of fire when it comes to these sort of storms, we are able to get this on rare occasions, and we are dreadfully unequipped for it. Unfortunately, our infrastructure, for some reason, doesn't account for this. And I remember specifically, and I will get back to the Medieval Faire thing. Don't worry. Do not worry about that. The problem is, as well, is that I remember distinctively that many, many years ago, when I was still here, I think when I was perhaps a bit younger, maybe half this age, I remember a time where we were actually hit with a similar storm, tornado, I think, as well. That was pretty close by, where huge winds. I was outside when this was happening, by the way. I was by the trees, of course, and I felt this huge gush of wind just hit my face, and it was raining, and there was hailstones just hitting the ground and stuff. And then you started to hear the siren, like, scary shit, And it was a sign that, hello, get the fuck inside. This is not a false alarm. This is not a drill. There's a real one coming this way, whatever. So we sort of, went in the house for that. We just sort of stayed indoors. Luckily for us, I think as well, this may be a bit of a negative thing to it, but where I live, there are trees everywhere. Trees are all over the place. And though this can prove dangerous, if a tree falls over, it can crush a car, it can definitely kill a person. But trees are sort of natural windbreakers and deterrents. They are like walls and columns that sort of stand up. And the wind has to sort of work hard to sort of, hit against them, And they whistle through them and everything. It has to sort of seek an easier method of entry. And we have trees everywhere, and we have one particular behind the house that is not the healthiest of trees, and it is quite massive. So I was a little bit apprehensive. I was a bit nervous about if this fucker falls over, we could, potentially lose a part of the house. But luckily, thank the spirits, thank the guardians, that we were all right, despite how windy it got. It was rather ugly outside, but I respected that power. And I understood that this was just a time, this was just a path that this being, this titan, this storm, this tornado just want to sort of pass through. But, speaking on that sort of titan subject, I have a video right here called Titans Among Us, where I sort of go into the natural weather phenomenons and how ancient civilizations sort of labeled them as being these great beings of titans and what that sort of thing means, and the type of understanding you have when a lot of energy sort of collects at a certain point, and if it gains a type of sentience, it can sort of take the form of something like a tornado and walk and essentially do different things that sort of unexpected. That they don't follow the trajected course that we have for them. They do something immediately different, as if to say, I'm not going to do what you think I'm going to do. But it is sort of a belief mostly in that matter. But it is absolutely interesting. I suggest you watch that video, by the way. It is really interesting, and I actually like it. It sort of goes into that sort of thing when it comes to things like the Titans, as to what's projected, as to what they do, how they operate, and how perhaps even the amount of energy that sort of a city, I believe, sort of emits, that music with the natural landscapes sort of have an effect on the shape that this sort of energetical being or mass sort of takes. And but that's pretty much a tangent. But let me get back to Celtic Mayhem. Okay, so we're at the fair, and the Celtic Mayhem, they're sort of playing these songs in a Celtic manner, and they were sort of dancing. They're involved. They're sort of playing these songs and everything like that. I have some recording that I did. I will sort of post it here very quickly. All right, you saw it, and but it is something that I think is beautiful to see, because these are people that essentially, despite the differences, despite how they look like, they are united in song, which is the power of songs. It has sorcery. It's in it. Yes, I'm validated. Woo! Fuck you. That's right. Music is magic. Suck my dick. It is fantastic. It is powerful. But there's a part at the end, and I did not record this section because I felt a bit more intimate. As they're about to close the festival, they sort of do this one song, and it's a very merry song. But it's also a bit melancholic, and it's sort of talking about how we should take this time to drink together, to raise a glass for everyone here, because there may not be a next time, so we should enjoy each other's company, have a good time, and be merry. And it was such a beautiful song. I was very touched by it. A tear almost welled up, because even though it's just a song to some, and people were standing up on the benches that were there and raising their glasses and yelling at the top of their lungs, and everyone was singing together. And the amount of energy and spiritual energy that I felt at that moment was sort of potent for me as an empath. And I sort of felt this thing. Everyone was there, and everyone wanted to enjoy their time there, because there may not be a next time. I'm sorry. Oh, where's Grimmy? Grimmy, I need you. What are you doing back there? No, you want to leave me alone. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Woo! Help me out, Grimmy. Oh my god. Oh my goodness, it's not working. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I just got so emotional. But the lyrics of the song were very potent. They had a lot of meaning. And they were, and the people that were playing there were sort of, singing this song. Everyone was singing that song together. And everyone was like, no matter what, we're going to have a good time. We're happy about it or whatever. Fuck everything else. We're going to have a drink. We're going to have a good time. And that is the type of attitude that I believe people need nowadays, because people are so worried about, their own personal lives. And that's extremely valid. But it's also a time of, where people aren't sure about what's going to happen. And there has been loss. Oh my god. And it's something that is dreadfully needed. Oh my god, hold on. Oh, whatever. It was. I'm not gonna get into it. I cannot cry on here. Oh, because it'll ruin the mask. Oh my god. Oh, Grimmy. Oh my god, but no, but it was a beautiful time. I thank all of them for doing what they are doing. It touched me immensely, and I'm so happy for it. But yes, so that is pretty much the magic of these sort of festivals, these fairs. So if there's a fair near you, a medieval fair, something of that kind, I encourage all of you to go to one. Go there dressed up to your best. Go there, and you're not going to avoid the assholes. There are some that are there. Luckily, I didn't see any, hear any, or feel any. People just want to have a good time. That's what we're there for. It's a fucking fair. So we had a good time. Go there, get into character if you can. People are there. These are people that want to be there. These are people that want to sort of they admire, they love something about that time in our history, in that time of our stories, of things that sort of help shape heroes, that shape wizards, that shape bars, that shape adventurers. And it's something that celebrates that. And the spirit is extremely adventurous because life itself is an adventure. And it is something that we need to not only prepare for, but, be able to enjoy in certain moments. And the fair is certainly one of those moments, okay? But yes, go to one, go with a friend. Going alone may be a bit much, but there are the people that are themselves alone. So, go there, try to make some friends, have a good time, and, and enjoy the weather if you can. Enjoy the outfits, compliment them, enjoy the shows, see the shows, talk about it, and then see what, even you can contribute to. Because there were a lot more performers this year, and I was curious about maybe performing there myself. Oh my, could you imagine me on stage? I'd have everyone lined up to I'm not gonna get into that. That's wrong. No, it's not. I don't care. But no, I would have the entire place captivated, eating out of the palms of my hands. Woo! I can't wait for that day. Oh my god. And I think the day that I do, I think I might bring out a few songs of this sort of book and putting together a compendium of, sort of works that are dedicated to things like the spirits, the pagan gods, or whatever. It's going to be fantastic. Oh, the name of my act may be Pagan Party, Pagan Pride, Pagan Parade, Pagan Palooza, something like that, with a bunch of spirits there, because technically I am pagan. If you're a witch that isn't in the Christian circles, you're a fucking pagan, according to the definition. I'm sorry, okay? But they're not the same. A witch can be pagan, but a pagan isn't necessarily a witch. That's true. There's technicalities to that. But by the definition provided by the dictionary, by online, or whatever, it's essentially any sort of belief that isn't the mainstream core of beliefs. Mostly things like Christianity, especially when you sort of call people that didn't have the same beliefs pagan. So there's that. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope all of you, and encourage all of you to sort of attend these festivals, to attend time with your friends, to raise a glass because it may be, in fact, be your last. To take the time to, sort of, be around others, to sort of, grow in your power, grow in your happiness, in your joy. Learn to craft, practice safety, whether it is sex or magic. Lean on others for assistance if you need it sometimes. Spirits that are living or dead. Go out there, take time to enjoy the breeze. Don't focus so much on the political bullshit that we have to deal with nowadays. Look into the earth that has been here since before there was politics and after, when we are all dead and buried. Focus on things like nature, focus on things like friends, focus on things like your community if you care to, focus on things that make you happy, because life is too short to not be happy, okay? I encourage all of you to sort of keep up in your studies, make sure that you let your brother out of his cage once in a while because it gets rather gassy in there. I want to remind all of you to sort of, be kind, rewind, reassess, and practice and access greatness, to remember that, we are a community, we are a group, we are a party of power, of influence, of glory. And I want all of you to sort of partake in that, because you are sort of lords, ladies, beasts, fairies of many different walks of life. And our world, our belief system is essentially a medieval fair. And it is marvelous. It is fantastic. I love you all dearly. I urge all of you to sort of, stay tuned for another video for further updates. I'm so happy I did this, and I wasn't expecting to get as emotional as I did at that moment. You can't see the tears because the mask hides it. Thankfully, that's what these runes are for. And you know what? Be out there, be alive, and be present. Okay? There are other people besides the ones that you know that may be in need of you, or that may be in need of a helping hand once in a while, or just, maybe in need of seeing other people or whatever. Don't get so caught up in what you see on TV, what you see on the news. It in itself is a spirit of some kind that seeks to reap the benefits. It's all weaponized empathy. A lot of it is. And that's my last video. Make sure you watch that. Make sure you comment on it. Feel free to take it, Tim, analyze it. Give me examples in the comments of things you've seen and noticed. I may, in fact, participate within the comment section. I'm not just actually above you, below that. You are all my beautiful rats, lords, and ladies. Let's go! And for those in between, whatever, you are marvelous, you are beautiful, and you are loved and well cared for and liked. Thank you so much for watching again. I love you all dearly. Goodbye.